whose greatest command to us before he died was to love each other and to love God. And I wonder, what will we make of this meeting, of this coming together? How are we going to meet the humanity present in that little baby, that vulnerable little baby, and in every one of us? How will we meet the divine in all of us and that is everywhere around us? In her song, the Magnificat, which we heard last week, Jesus' mother, Mary, praises God, saying, "He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty." I have been giving this a lot of thought this week as I was homesick, as you all see from my mask, in the context of these questions and of Christ's birth. And it's really kind of all there in that nativity, that story of Christ's birth that we celebrate today. People from all walks of life and people being lifted up and brought down from their thrones. But just to be clear, often we do think of being brought down as losing status, money, and power. You see it out there in the memes. Jesus is brought down the high. And we see lifting, being lifted up as gaining those things. But I wonder if when we limit, not to exclude that, but when we limit ourselves to that rather human way of looking at things, whether we might be missing a big part of the point. What if the lifting up and the bringing down has more to do with a unifying force of love that brings us closer together? Let me explain. You think of those shepherds, the lowest of the low, and there they are out there in their fields on a cold, starry night, maybe cooking a meal around the fire, preparing a camp for the night, protectors of hundreds of sheep who wander around bleating and doing their thing. No fine clothes, no nice bed to sleep on, no perfumes, no incense, little respect from the townsfolk. And then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of God shone around them, and they were terrified. The first to receive the good news of the Messiah's birth were these lowly shepherds. And like Mary, they will be called blessed for generations to come. Central characters in the story of God's incarnation on earth. They are filled with hope and wonder, joy and awe, feasting on God's eternal promise, and they respond to that good news with a resounding yes. As one, they rush to go and meet this Messiah, born in their very own town, born in the city of David, Bethlehem, because God has lifted up the lowly and he has filled the hungry with good things. But as we know, these shepherds are not the only ones who know that something is up. The Gospel of Matthew tells us that wise men from the east have seen the star of the King of the Jews, and they have come to worship him. These great wise people, rich enough to make a very long journey to be welcomed by King Herod, they are made low. When they had come into the house, the Gospel of Matthew says, they saw the young child Mary with his mother, and they fell down and they worshiped him. And these wise, great people go away with far emptier hands, having left their gifts with Jesus. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and across miles of desert, and sent the rich away empty but lighter. Like the shepherds whose status as the lowly was swept away with the good news of Jesus, so these kings no longer had regard for their riches and power. Together, those who came to worship Jesus, to celebrate his birth, his incarnation, became simply people, human together, witnesses to a divine miracle just as we are today. And in some ways, those low and the high that are in this story, the low were already high, the shepherds being so often a metaphor for God's care for us, and the high were already low. Strangers from a faraway land, unfamiliar with the religion, the politics, and the pitfalls. And in both cases, a yes was required of the low and of the mighty, a willingness to step out of their comfort zone, because we get comfortable in both those spots, a willingness to get out of their comfort zones and to bear witness as people to the miracle of a God made incarnate, fully human in Jesus of Nazareth. So back to the questions. What will we make of the meeting, of this coming together today? How are we going to go out there and meet the humanity present in all of the people, in all of the world around us, and how will we meet the divine in it? I remember visiting my grandparents for Christmas when I was a kid. This is just one example. And my grandmother was a stately woman. Born in 1905, she had a master's degree, an aunt who was a doctor, and a brother who had a law degree from Harvard. She was not severe exactly, but she was filled with that special kind of adult power that left me in awe of her. But that Christmas, she did something that didn't so much knock her off the pedestal, knocking down the high, but rather made me see her as one of us, made me trust her. She would, as she opened the gifts we gave her, she would take the gift that we gave her, and she would take it very carefully, take the ribbon and the wrapping off of it, and she would take the ribbon and she would stick it in her hair, or she would put it around her neck. And then she would slowly open the box, take out, the nightgown, the mittens, the scarf, whatever, and say thank you to whoever gave her the gift. And then she'd put the gift on. So by the end of the night, my grandmother had on a head full of ribbons, like 3 nightgowns, some mittens, a scarf, and some sort of kitchen thing that she found a way to make into clothing. I don't really remember it, but I do remember that there was something like that. And that woman who was so serious, who was used to going, shh, shh, and finding really good information for college students at the University of Rochester, was just glowing, delighted, smiling. It was a true gift. This mighty woman made low, but not from shame, not from being knocked down, but rather from a shared humanity and from a commitment to love. So this evening, I hope that when we really say yes to Jesus, to this incredible miracle, and we feel the power of God in us, fully with us, that it does more than just bring us together for this ritual of celebrating Christmas Eve together, which is lovely in and of itself, but I pray that the love of God and the love of one another becomes an overwhelmingly unifying purpose for every one of us, no matter where we come from or where we live, no matter how young or old we are. Because in God's love, our differences are not swept away. Rather, they help us to magnify and highlight God's love. My grandmother didn't become a child. The shepherds didn't go off and become kings, and the kings didn't become shepherds. They went back to their fancy homes in their faraway land. But each one of those people said yes to love, to possibility, to joy. God has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty, and it was good. We all are precious in God's sight, and if we say yes to each other's humanity. So may we, this Christmas day, let ourselves be lifted up, let ourselves be humbled, drawn in whatever way is needed, by this beautiful baby to the way of love, where the most compelling force in our lives becomes to love one another and to love God with all our heart and all our mind and all our soul and all our strength. Merry Christmas and Amen.